Well, welcome into another exciting episode of The Scene. I'm your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today is singer-songwriter Chase Grant. Chase, welcome to the show.
How you doing? Excited to be here.
I'm doing well, man, and we're gonna get into, a lot during this episode. I already know you have a lot personally going on, and obviously a thriving music career. But for everyone who doesn't know you here on the show, and for me personally, why don't you give us a little bit of the backstory, and we'll pick it up from there.
Okay. So I'm from Rush City, Minnesota. It's a town about 45, 50 minutes just north of the metro. Real small. I started off playing music when I was about 12. Picked up a couple cowboy chords on the guitar. And really, it was just kind of the early days of YouTube back then. And so I picked up a few AC/DC songs and just kind of grew from there. But it sort of plateaued for a long time just because of like personally, I just didn't know where I was going with it and stuff. And it wasn't until church worship just a few years ago that I actually sang and played in tandem for the first time, really. And it was a huge, huge eye opener. And that was what kind of lifted everything off. And then from there, it was joining the Farmer's Daughters after a few years, starting my own band as well, and then just kind of developing into recording and my solo career after that. So,
So it seems like it was like very flat for a long time and then it went straight up.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It kind of out of nowhere. I told my wife that I was going to apply for um, audition for this worship team, and she had said, "Oh, you sing?" And I said, "Well, I think so." And I sang in front of her, and she started crying. And I thought, well, God, was it that bad? And she goes, no, I loved it. You need to pursue this. And so I just haven't looked back ever since.
That's really awesome to hear the push from this significant other, right?
Mhm.
I think a lot of especially young men get talked out of their dreams, and I think we're both very fortunate to have women in our lives that are pushing us towards those dreams and realizing that it would be a life. I mean, an unfulfilled life is maybe a little too harsh, but
Yeah.
to have that talent and then to not pursue it in some fashion, right? I think for some of us, just being in the worship team, right? When I did 2 years in prison, I was a member of the worship, praise team
Mhm.
there as well, and it really kind of rekindled my love of music. So nice to hear that you got a good one.
Yeah, I really do. She's been very supportive and we make it work with now we have two children and it it keeps paying for itself and we're finding time for each other, for the kids, for music, and it doesn't come without its struggles, but we're making it work really well.
Well, yeah, and speaking of kids and struggles, I feel like that's a good segue into, your current situation. I know you have a little one that was born premature, I'm guessing then.
Not by a lot, just by like a week or two. Like honestly, he was almost full term, but they caught a rare heart condition in utero at 20 weeks. And unfortunately, in my family, this is not the first time I've seen this. We don't know if it's related, but I had a cousin that had a similar story. And what with my son is there's a blockage that was in his heart that was preventing blood from going through to mix to get into his body, like into his lungs. So the blood coming from the body. And they've done one surgery already to remove that atrial septum blockage, and now he's mixing blood and he's stable, but he's just hit many other roadblocks as we go, including things with his lungs and respiratory, um, including intestinal things, just because of our heart is pumping blood to the most vital organs first, our brain, obviously our heart, and then like the last things to get blood flow sometimes are those intestinal things. And so there's been some troubles with that, but he's recovered from those things. It just he likes to move very slow and just at his own pace. And they find that when they try to push him, he fights back. And so he's got this little fiery spirit in him that says, "Hey, I'm here to cook low and slow, and nobody's going to tell me otherwise."
I feel like there's a theme emerging here for the rest of his life as well. So
Uh-huh.
sometimes it's nice to learn that stuff early so you're not, dealing with unruly teenagers.
Right. I think
Well,
this one's going to be pretty chilled, but we'll see what happens.
Right. Well, and obviously it's posed some interesting, living conditions for you guys. You're currently recording from the hospital room, which has kind of become a little bit of home, I'm sure, for you guys. I
Yeah.
know you've been there for a while. He was born when?
He was born May 13th.
So yeah, you're going on several months now of living, in two worlds essentially.
Mhm.
You kind of referenced off camera that your house was starting to feel like a hotel and the hospital was feeling like home. I
Yep.
had a, not a child, but we had my father-in-law, my wife's dad, broke his leg and a pretty
Oh,
gruesome break. So he was actually in the hospital for quite a while. It got infected and they were trying to send him home, and we're like, look, if something goes wrong, isn't it
right.
much better that he's, and we live in a small town. So he was like 3 blocks away from the house, but it's like,
Yep.
what's the point of transporting him back and forth? We're already here. Let's stay here until he's good and we know he's confident to go home. So is
Uh-huh.
that kind of where you guys are at? Is there any kind of, foretelling how long you'll be staying here and in this situation?
So we actually have a meeting later today to sort of discuss. It's a care conference, and so it'll be the majority of the doctors and all these teams that have been working with us in and out will be in the same room. And it seems intimidating, but it's mostly just to kind of get everybody in the same room and see where do we need to go from here, because there's kind of this sort of a stalemate where we're at, where he's just kind of staying the same. He's not really turning that corner to getting like his breathing tube out and things like that. That will just that's little milestones that they want to see at this point. That's just not really happening. Um, but I mean, regardless of what they say today, as far as his plan, it's going to be months because he needs more heart surgery, and there's going to be weeks of him getting to that point in between that, and then even after that surgery, there's weeks of recovery. And I mean, we're talking probably August, September at this point, if I had to guess.
Yeah,
It's
as
hard to
as
say.
like the soonest possible, right? So yeah, a
Yeah.
long road ahead of you guys still. And
Hmm.
our hearts, our prayers are with you guys always. Do you
Thank you.
have any kind of are you a GoFundMe or anything like that that you're using to kind of raise money?
Yeah, we do. We do have one set up. I would have it linked on my socials at some point today. It's been a little bit of time since I shared it, but I can put that on my website as well. Otherwise, honestly, it's just been we did a lot of fundraising beforehand with the one of my biggest sponsors, or my only sponsor really, Ian Co Clothing out of Waite Park. She's a good friend of ours, and she put together an event that we did at Iron Street Distillery in St. Cloud, where there was a bunch of different vendors there, and the proceeds from those sales of the sweatshirts that she had created went to our family, and she ended up raising over $5,000 just in the sweatshirts alone. But we've been doing stuff like that. Every portion of my tips, or all of my tips at my shows, have been going just to save up for him, and
Yeah,
not only for medical
every
bills, but
penny, every penny that you've made for the last, and not that that's going to change in the future, but we'd love to support you all in that. We'll definitely be sharing the links across all of our social media, and obviously it'll be attached to this episode
well,
when it
thank you.
goes out as well. But we would love to be involved with another benefit concert or anything else that you got in the future as well. So definitely keep us in mind there, Chase.
Yeah, it'd be good.
I know from personal experience, my brothers both did long stints in the NICU, and so I know the challenges that can be presented from that. So, like I said, from everybody in the Scene Projects world, our hearts go out to you guys, and our prayers are with your little guy, and
Thank you.
we're wishing all the best for y'all. So obviously, with now all of that going on, maintaining a career at all can be kind of difficult, right? We've
Yeah.
talked about your support system and how the wife is, kind of pushed you into, chasing this dream, if you will. But what do you do moving forward? I mean, I guess I can't even really wrap my mind around continuing to go out and play music, knowing, and it seems like at least at this point, he's not fighting for his life on a daily basis, as I'm sure it was in the beginning. But I mean, you're still
Right.
talking about, being in the back of your mind all the time. Personally, how do you kind of put all that aside to be able to go step out on stage and to play music?
So music has always been not just something that I enjoy just listening to for just for the purpose of like, oh yeah, that's a great song, or yeah, that's a good time, you know. It's music has always spoke to me on a deeper level. I like very deep lyrics, and I like when songs aren't just about, drinking beer and red dirt. Like I like when it's like when it hits you. And so playing some of these songs, like I play all these party songs, don't get me wrong, but there is times during my shows where I will sit back and I kind of get real with people and I tell them like, hey, this is something that I've been going through lately, and I just kind of want to share this a little bit with you guys. And this is a song I've been singing to my son in the hospital room, or this is a song that kind of reflects my faith. And I just out loud, without shame, will just kind of preach a little bit. And then it's not to, smack anybody over the head with the Bible and say this is what you got to believe in or anything, but it's I just try to show what real faith can do in somebody's life. And I've found it very restoring to sing my feelings on stage, and it very much so resonates with people. I've seen it move people to the point where they'll come up to me crying, telling me stories, or come up to me with a handshake and be like, hey, you need to check into this organization. Like people, it's restored a lot of faith in humanity, in my opinion, um, in a world that seems like it's kind of crappy the last few years. There's some really good people out there, and that's why I keep doing it, because if I can do anything to help others through a situation that's similar, or even in just a song that I write that's about something else, that means the world to me.
Isn't it's so interesting to me that like the way, God works. I'm a man of faith myself. Not a hugely, religious church going person, but you don't come through all the things that I have come through in my life without having faith by the truckload.
Yeah,
So it's always been interesting to me to see how faith works almost better at our lowest points, right? Like we're
yeah,
exposed to more of that in our lowest points, and that is renewed, right? That faith in humanity, right? Not
mhm,
just in God, but in humanity is always kind of brought about by the low points as well. I've always found
yeah,
that really, really intriguing. So I love how you're using, your platform to just go out and to be yourself, right? You're not necessarily using it to further someone else's agenda or to be something that somebody else wants you to be. You're merely stepping up there onto your soapbox and saying, this is me. This is what I'm going through. This is who I am. This is my faith, and really using that how you should. I think that's something that a lot of artists, and I talk to a lot of them,
yeah,
that we all kind of need to remember that the reason we are in the position that we are in is because people like us. People, it's not necessarily, oh, you play great music, or oh, I really liked when you did that Fishing in the Dark cover, right?
yeah,
It's more of, I liked the person who was behind that song. And I think because the superficiality of the music business, like the larger music industry as a whole, because it has gotten very drink beer, girl on a beach, right?
yeah,
Right? Like it is
yeah,
so that we kind of I don't know, we forget about ourselves as artists, right? Because we're trying to make it in this business, that we forget about, like, you're going to make it by just being yourself, by sharing more of yourself and connecting with other people. That's how you make it, especially in this world where our attention is divided into a million pieces, right?
hmm,
And to use the platforms that we've all built to expose not necessarily ourselves to all of these other people, but to expose all of these other people to who we are, and to
yeah,
use that to lift them up from whatever they might be going through, right? And we don't necessarily know the effect that we're having on other people. So yeah, really cool to hear that from your story, and to hear that, instead of this situation taking you away from it, you've been able to actually bring your situation to the stage with you, and to say, hey, no, this is what's going on with me, you know,
yeah,
and this is why it's important for me to be here with you and not in that hospital room right now.
yes, yeah. And it's like I from the beginning of that, I thought, okay, I need to be careful of how I word this because I don't want to come out and be like, hey, that rattling the cup at him, like, I need your donations, I need your money. It's like, it's not about that. Like, yes, like obviously donations are helpful to my family, and that like we appreciate everything that we've gotten and received from people. But it's like it's coming directly from the heart when I talk about my son, or when I talk about my journey as musically, like being too shy to do any of this stuff, and or even combining both of those stories. And it's simply just to tell people like, hey, I used to be the nervous kid that would be sitting in front of a crowd or sitting in front of a classroom, even in high school, being like, I couldn't really even talk to people hardly. It was scary as it is for most people. But there is a higher power in it, man. When you go knocking on that door and ask, can you do this for me? Can you help me get my music out there? God will kick in some doors that you never even knew existed. And that's just what I want to share with people.
Yeah, yeah, and you're living it, right? You're living it every single day, and we're dealing with a lot of that right now. I mean, a lot of the things in my life that are happening now are a product of the prayers prayed 6 months ago. And
Yeah.
whether I'm always conscious of that or not, the "be careful what you wish for" motto has come up quite a bit lately because you're like, oh, we want all these things to happen, and then they start happening for you, and it's almost, it's just pinch me. It's
Yeah.
how is this happening? And you really have to come back and just be grateful, right? And to express that gratitude. And I think for musicians, especially, and songwriters, that music is the way that we do that.
Hmm.
So I feel like, for you, and not to put words into your mouth, but like almost going out and performing becomes that expression of the gratitude that, like, hey, my son is still alive. We're still experiencing miracles every single day, in the medical fields and in these things. And my way of expressing that is to come to you wherever that may be, and to share my love of music and a little bit of my story with you.
Yeah. And it's amazing what that will open up and what that does. Like, for instance, I'll keep this story very, very short. Um, but I was performing in St. Cloud a few weeks back, and it was a Thursday gig, and I thought, there's not always a ton of people out on Thursdays, just give or take. And I had a few crowds, or a few people in the crowd, a couple that were dancing and stuff, and I was having fun. And this mom and dad and a little baby came in, and huge God moment because I can't explain it any other way. But I didn't think much of it. I just saw them sit down, and then I started again talking about my son for maybe 10, 15 seconds before I went into a song. And she come up to me and she goes, "Did you say your son was sitting at down at U of M?" And I said, "Yeah, we've been here for 5, 6 weeks at this point." And she goes, and my son's name is Hudson, by the way. She goes, "Well, I just wanted to introduce you. This is my son. His name is Hudson." And I go, "Okay." I thought she was kidding. And turns out they had been down at the same hospital, the same nurses, almost to the same room that we're in right now. He had a major heart defect as well. His was actually even worse than my son's in a sense. Um, and they are about 6 months, I think, post being here. And he's walking and talking, laughing. He was dancing along with the Alan Jackson song I was playing for him, and it was they were from south of Mankato, and it just for them to be there that day, they had no idea who I was. They had no idea anything. They just showed up to eat supper. They had some family that lived just north of St. Cloud, and they just happened to be there that day. And I just thought, okay, well, I don't believe in coincidences, and I certainly don't now. So
Yeah, no, exactly. We have a friend of ours. I'll kind of share a similar story. So we have a nonprofit that we work closely with called Saving Avery. Avery's a 2-year-old little girl, my friend's daughter. She was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes last year. And since then, they've been finding like tiny little rubber duckies at the restaurant, at here, at there, everywhere, right? And it's same thing. That this is God talking, and people bringing them to it, and just those little signs, right? And I've
yeah,
always equated it a little bit to, I don't know if you've seen the movie Interstellar, and not that these major motion pictures need much play, but there's parts in the movie where he's actually time traveling, right? He's sent to
yeah,
save the world through the black hole, and as he's traveling through the singularity, you're seeing flashbacks to different moments in the movies where something happened, And
Yeah.
it was it turns out that it's him in the singularity in the future affecting the past, and it was just like such a wild kind of God moment, right? And
Yeah.
it's like, oh man, is that what we all are, right? Is that this huge web of the world, right? All these unknown mysteries out there.
Hmm.
It's really cool to see it show up, and I love that God is showing up in your life and is showing up in Hudson's life as well. Great name. Great name.
Thanks. Thank you.
Awesome, Chase. Well, we've pretty much covered it all, man. You want to go ahead and tell us about any kind of upcoming big shows you might have for the rest of the month of July, and then plug anything else that you need to as well.
Yeah, we have quite a few county fairs this month with Farmers' Daughters, from Anoka to Chisago. We have the Isani Street Dance and the Crow Wing County Fair as well. And then as far as solo and duo shows for myself, we're playing everywhere from just out west of St. Cloud all the way back to Pine City at the Garage Bar and Grill, and just kind of all over the place. You can find most of those details and shows and stuff right on my website or on Facebook or TikTok, all those social medias. Yeah,
What,
it's going to be a
what's your
really
web?
busy summer.
What's your website, Chase?
It's chasegrantmusic.com.
Well, there it is. Chase, thank you for coming on the show today, sharing your story and getting to introduce yourself to me. I'm happy to know you and can't wait to work with you in the future. We get up to Minnesota there quite a bit. I was up there at Dunmire's in Brainerd, oh, just a month or so-ish ago, and can't wait to get back. Maybe when it's a little less smoky. Has the smoke dwindled a little bit?
Yeah, it's pretty clear down here now. It's we're okay with those Canadians now. We're not so mad at them anymore.
Awesome, Chase. Well, thanks for being on the show and thanks for being part of the scene.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.